Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're joined by Camo, one of my close friends. Camo, how we doing today?
Man, we doing good. Out here just living, and thank you for having me on the show. And happy National Wing Day to all you out there listening. If you haven't noticed something.
Absolutely. I appreciate you for being here, and it's a good opportunity to talk about what it's like to actually live in LA. I think until the end of time, we're always going to hear people talk about how crazy LA is and how many weird things happen and just anything of that nature. I think LA gets a rap that is undeniable as far as how wild or crazy it could get. So it's good to get somebody with some good insight on it. So Camo, I want you to just give me a brief summary. How did you get to LA land? How did you get there?
I first got to LA through work. I got hired by Fox full time. Before that, I was working in New York City, which was a completely different vibe altogether, completely different city, completely different culture, and we can get into that a little bit later too. But that was how I started in LA, and then as I continue to live in different neighborhoods, starting in Beverly Hills and then Santa Monica, and then like Koreatown and downtown, stuff like that. It's just been an experience all around that I've genuinely just enjoyed. We're gonna get into it all today, but LA is just an absolute culture fest 24/7.
Honestly, it's pretty dope because you've lived, we're both from Denver, close friend Camo, but it's like living in Denver, moving to New York City, then moving to LA. Where in New York City did you live again? I know you lived two places.
I lived in Harlem, and then I lived in Brooklyn.
Okay, so how close to Manhattan were you? Because I know Harlem and Manhattan are connected, right?
Yeah, Harlem. So I lived in West Harlem, and West Harlem is on the Isle of Manhattan. And then if you take the train across, Brooklyn is technically it's a different borough. So those aren't connected.
Before talking about how wild LA is, I want to know which one do you believe is more wild from the top of your head, LA or Harlem?
You know what?
LA or New York, excuse me.
Yeah, no, that actually kind of depends, and you wouldn't think that depends. So if you just mean like wild, like in the sense of just the people that you run into every day, I would definitely say just Los Angeles. But
really?
I think, the communities here, they just have their own way of going about life, and you always run into it.
Okay, for sure. What's an example of that?
All right, I would say, so for example, in New York, if you were to go to Manhattan and you were like, I'm going to go to the financial district, I'm going to go to Wall Street, right? Everyone there is someone in finance. They have a certain look about them. They walk a certain way, they talk a certain way, and they're all the same type of people. You know exactly what you're getting every time you go to a certain area in a borough. That's usually what happens in New York. LA is so blended together as far as the communities. There's Afro-Latino communities everywhere, then there's just African communities, and there's just Latino communities. And then obviously you have your white communities and your Asian communities and Koreans. Like, you don't know what you're gonna find in the spots that you thought you knew in LA. You're always gonna find something different, something new. Everything is too blended together, if that makes sense.
I get it. I could definitely see how it happens that way. And then kind of transitioning into like what you currently do. So you're obviously in LA. You're in LA because of an opportunity that you got with Fox. How did you receive that opportunity, and what are you kind of doing there?
Well, I started as a freelancer working for Fox News in New York, and I was just trying to make ends meet back then. I would take any job that I could get. I was working weekends. And then once COVID happened, about a month later, I was very lucky to be able to keep my job at Fox and just work from home in Denver. And as we know, we spent a lot of time together with our friends in Denver during that time. And then they said, we're going to hire you guys full time, but you're going to have to come back into the office. Now, I had been under a different manager at the time, and they were left to go start a brand new app in New York. And our team got moved under an LA branch, but they still were like, you can go back to the New York office. I didn't want to be in New York because all I was doing out there was working. I didn't have all my friends left. They didn't want to stay, and I didn't have a community that I could call my own. So I was just like, I don't really like being here. Let me go try somewhere new. So I asked to be transferred to Los Angeles, and that ended up being the best choice for me.
Nice. I mean, yeah. Well, shout out to Fox for giving me that opportunity. All right. Mm-hmm. So let's just be honest. You work for Fox. What's the most wild thing you've heard working at Fox? Just the first thing that comes to your head when you think of like, I can't believe I'm like working at Fox and I just heard that on this station.
Yeah, honestly, I think the craziest thing that I've seen so far, there's on the Fox News channel during the 8 p.m. hour. It used to be Tucker Carlson, now it's a guy named Jesse Waters, and
Okay.
he brought on a furry to his program to basically try to clown him in front of national television.
Okay.
He literally tried to clown him, and then at the end of it, the furry turned the tables and said, "Jesse, you would make a great furry." And he said, "Honestly, I probably would." And he's like, "I'll see you at the next convention."
It's Jesse Waters.
Never before did I thought that was probably the wildest thing I saw on national television.
That's funny. What's the most radical thing you've heard?
The most radical?
Because I know you're dealing with news stations who have to have strong opinions about basically what's going on in the world. So what would you say is the most radical thing you've heard?
Oh my God. It was probably the fact that people are, well, obviously Trump not being in the Epstein files is one thing. But then I would say anything to do with Charlie Kirk. If you don't know who Charlie Kirk is, honestly, he's a scumbag. Like he's an absolute scumbag. He goes to colleges across the U.S. and he tries to debate them about Republican values and stuff like that. Far-right conservative values. He can win every time because these college kids don't know how to debate. They don't know how to articulate their thoughts properly. He went to Cambridge and he tried to bring American policies over there and just say, hey, is the embryo's alive, right? Because it's a gift from God. And stuff like that. It's a soul that you're killing, right? And it's a whole thing. And they absolutely they clowned him. They clowned him big time. But American universities can't do it. And that's a whole thing on our system.
So just to stay on him for a second. So you're obviously in you're in the news sector, but it's still entertainment. Like you have to tell news in an entertaining way to get more views. So yeah. I actually want to hear your perspective as somebody who has to consume and edit content for a profession. Do you think that content like his, that's a little more rage bait and rage clicking, or it's more radical type content, do you actually think that he's going about his channel in a bad way?
No. And the reason that I say no is because he knows exactly what type of, there is an audience for him. He knows exactly who his audience is and how to reach it. So from a business perspective, he's doing really well. But and obviously, if you're asking from an ethical or moral standpoint, no, it's not good. But from a business perspective, he's in the right place and he's doing the right things. He is, and it is more rage baity because a lot of his takes are honestly meant to just be the most controversial thing ever, so that he can interact with chat or interact with his commenters, and that drives traffic to his channel. You know?
Absolutely.
You can.
And then being somebody in the industry, like how much of that do you think does take control? Like, do you see it in your daily life, or as somebody who works in film and production, when you're watching these things, are you saying that it's because people don't understand the business of entertainment and getting people's attention? Or on the flip side, are you like, it's so oversaturated that people have to do the most dramatic things? Which side do you stand on, business versus moral?
Ooh, okay, obviously that's like a deeper question because it depends on the content too. But I would say for anyone trying to get into the type of content that like Charlie and Jesse Waters and all that stuff, if you're trying to get into political content, I would say, damn, that really is tough.
Hey man, we're here for the tough questions. I guess another one that I like to frame it is, if you think about it, you have Impractical Jokers, and then you have Jackass. Jackass and Impractical Jokers are selling the exact same thing. They're selling entertainment, and they're selling laughs, and they're selling wild ways about going about pranking each other, right? But most people could say Impractical Jokers, where they have very edgy stuff, they're much more ethical than Jackass. So where people are like, Jackass is just a bunch of scumbags, pieces of nothing, literally jackasses, and they could say Impractical Jokers, which is literally the more professional way of saying jackass. You know, you could say, well, like, I just want to know, like, when does the line get drawn as, well, we're going to go the Impractical Jokers way, or that's more ethical compared to Jackass, where it's completely off the wall. Another example is going to be like Maury versus Jerry Springer. They sold the same thing, right? They were both talk show hosts. They were both revealing certain things that people needed to get off of their chest and doing tests as well. They just did it in a very drastically different way. So somebody who's working in the industry, I want to know what you think about when it gets too much versus when it is just good quality content that gets the attention of others.
Yeah, so I think it becomes too much when you start having a real impact on your listeners and your viewers, as in a real world impact. So like, you know, who we're going to go to is Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, I think last year or 2 years ago, he had one episode of his podcast, and I think it was LA was having their fire season. It wasn't the big one from last time. It was the one before that during like a normal summer. Huge drought. And there were, I believe, protesters or people who were trying to actually help fight the fires. Joe Rogan heard from some random person on Twitter that they were starting the fires. They were the arsonists. Joe Rogan talked about that on his podcast, and people were finding the people who were going to the fires. And I don't remember if they fought them or if they arrested them or what they were doing, but it caused a huge problem. And Joe Rogan had to apologize on a future episode saying, hey, I heard my guys didn't really check their sources when we told people that these people are just scum and terrible people on this earth and starting these fires in LA. They weren't doing that. I think the line is really drawn when you start to have real power over people to go do things.
So it's actually when it stops being entertainment and it starts affecting real life. So it's one thing if you watch a Superman movie. It's another thing if you watch a Superman movie, but Superman in the movie tells every kid to go outside and fly. Then somebody's kid really goes outside and jumps off the roof, right? Yeah. So it's not too far until it has real world effects. So, but on the flip side, see, I'm going to push back on you a little bit, Camo. The only reason I'm going to push back is because there's plenty of movies that are based off of real world situations and how people actually feel. Yeah. So it's like if it has real world consequences, it might be the reflection of what people are experiencing in the real world. And it leaves people up to conversation where it's like, that's not real or that is real. Now, I'm getting a little off topic with it, but yeah, that's just my little bit of pushback where it's, you know, from Joe Rogan, he could have believed what he was saying in that time made sense, but it really was because that's what he believed at that time period. Yeah. Which was it true or not? Hey. But anyways, moving on. This is one thing I gotta know, Camo. Yes. I need to know, what are you experiencing of people in LA? What are people willing to do to live a LA lifestyle? Like what is the drastic versions of people trying to form into LA people trying to make it in LA, people trying to figure it out in LA? What are like the most drastic things that you're seeing happening since you've been there?
If you are someone who doesn't live in LA, you don't have family in LA, and you are just trying to start a life here, like a brand new life, let me tell you, it is only going to be difficult. You are going to have to live in a 600 to 800 square foot apartment with maybe 4, 5, even 6 people. It depends on how much you're getting paid too. Like if you're getting paid $60,000 a year, right? That's not enough to afford a decent apartment. You can't get a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. You're at most going to be able to afford a studio. You can afford places here, but they're not going to be in prime locations. They're also not going to be luxury apartments, and they're definitely not going to have the amenities that you want. You know, no in-unit laundry, no AC, like stuff like it's going to be very inconvenient. Because in Denver, what does $1,200 get you in Denver nowadays? Like if you pay $1,200 a month in rent,
it's gonna get you a decent 1-bedroom, 1-bath. I'm not gonna say a nice 1-bedroom, 1-bath, but if you go up to $1,250 plus all your utilities and everything like that after, you're gonna get a nice apartment for $1,250, but not $1,200. Like that $50 will make a big difference in Denver. So if you want to up it to $1,300, you could get a nice 1-bedroom, 1-bath in Denver, Colorado, or you could get a 2-bedroom, 1-bath for $1,200. It's just on Colfax, just a ran down apartment with missing the same amenities that you're talking about, but at least it's 2 bedrooms and at least 700 square feet.
Yeah, it has the space, and that's the other thing too. Like you're not gonna like here a 600 square foot place that's a studio is gonna be at minimum 1400.
Have you experienced anybody like what's something drastic that you've experienced? Somebody who's fresh into LA, no family, no nothing, but their like goal is to be some kind of entertainer or make it big in some aspect of LA's big culture scene. Have you like heard a story from anybody like that?
Yeah, all the time, actually. One of my first roommates, they came here from France, and they wanted to be a filmmaker. They didn't want to be an actress or anything. They just wanted to do the production side of it. But they had friends who were all trying to be actors and actresses. They were trying to break out in the industry. And funny enough, unlike in New York, and I can't say unlike in New York, but like at least when I was there, that's not where everyone started. Here, everyone else starts in photography and fashion modeling. That's like a starter industry for a lot of people here. They like to be on like Vogue magazine covers and stuff like that, and it's different. Because back in New York, it was you were trying to be in commercials.
Really?
That was what people tried to be. And New York is a huge commercial hub. It makes sense. I guess LA is a huge fashion. It's a fashion hub, I guess. That makes sense. Yeah. So
But
that's
actually, yeah, you're right. That
out.
makes a lot of sense. Yeah, New York
Yeah.
Fashion Week and just New York fashion. All right, that's fire. That's some game right there. I didn't even know that. Okay.
Yeah.
So what is your recommendation for somebody who wants to get into entertainment? Not so you're on the film and production side, and I'm not sure how much you actually deal with the the entertainers. But if you had some advice for an entertainer moving to LA, what would you be recommending?
If you are trying to break into the actual entertainment, like if you want to be the entertainer,
Yes.
there are a couple things you need to know. One, YouTube shorts or TikTok clips, anything short form is the best, it's the quickest way for you to gain popularity and gain notoriety, like quickly. You know, because one viral clip can send you in the right direction, and then you can either take the opportunity and build it from there, or not do anything with it, be a one-hit wonder. Like what was her name? Like Hawk to a Girl or something. She didn't really do anything until it was too late.
So have you noticed the kind of like the Hollywood industry changing with before they used to have to build characters, now they're just looking for characters that are already built and they just use people who align with whatever their quota is?
Yeah, that's kind of it's a good and a bad thing, because it truly means that anyone can honestly like come from anywhere. You can make it from anywhere. You can start from anywhere. Quite literally, the internet has changed that perspective of the industry for the better, in my opinion. But what sucks is the fact that writers, who are very important, by the way, good writing will absolutely make or break somebody actually getting to that next level. Writers are struggling to make original shit in our generation. What's the last good original movie or TV show you saw? Most people would say Sinners. I think Sinners would be like one where it's like, that's probably the best one. Original content.
Well, and then that's at that scale. So I also like want to shine a light on all the small projects that aren't making millions of dollars, like things that are just fully produced for a YouTube. People are making really, really good movies. People are making really good short films. I'm sure you've been to like short film festivals and everything like that. The only thing is they might not get the attention they deserve because they didn't have the right star and they didn't get a chance to get the $80 million budget that Ryan Coogler got. So I'm like, the biggest thing when it comes to that is like, I truly see how social media has completely changed the narrative where somebody could make a movie in 3 minutes at the same production or close to a production value of what it would take to get millions of views with $1 million budget. So it's just really weird how much, is in the creator's hand now. Like I have technically all the equipment of any radio station has. I might not have the mega power lines that can reach the masses and get nationally syndicated on the radio stations, but I have a platform that could distribute it to literally more people than any single mass media marketing channel could. So it's just crazy how much the game has changed. So I just think like entertainment as a whole. So I'm not too sure. You're the one who's went to school for it and studied it, from the entertainment side to film and production to equipment. It's just good to hear insights from people like yourself, because you guys are like actively in what's left of it and also what the future of it will be.
Yeah. And if you look at my career specifically, I started in production. I started doing camera stuff, and I wanted to do camera stuff for the rest of my life. And then I moved over to editing, and then I moved over to lighting, and then I moved over to broadcast, and I moved over to tech. Like I've been almost every facet of the industry now, and I'm landing in tech right now, and I'm landed in tech right now. That's where my bread and butter is. That's what pays the bills. But I still do camera stuff on the side. I still do lighting and AC work on the side. That's how it is. Like the production side of it is all freelance. It's mostly freelance anyway. Finding a full-time gig is hard. That pays a salary, benefits, all that stuff. Everyone travels all the time. If you're a good freelancer, you made it. Get paid to travel places, you made it. And
I want you to shine on being in tech real quick. What specifically do you do? Because that does set up my final question for the night. What specifically are you doing in the industry? And what specifically are you doing there?
Okay, so right now, and we touched a little bit on it before. I am editing the Fox News and the Fox Business shows specifically, and I'm editing them for their digital platforms for copyright. So if they say anything too crazy or if they say anything too false, then I have to be the one to see that, to cut it out, to edit it out, put a slate something to make it viewable for the digital platforms. I also have to write descriptions, make titles. And
how often do you hear the N-word?
Luckily none. But JD Vance got pretty close.
Okay.
Not even too long ago. I'm not even gonna lie. You can look it up. There's a hit clip of him in, I believe it's The House, with Jasmine Crockett, I believe. And I think he muttered under his breath for her to go back to the zoo. I think that's the closest that I've seen anything. And she was just like, oh shit, yeah, we're about to go crazy.
And I don't think people realize like how deep, like it gets that deep, whereas there's somebody editing, making sure exactly what narrative needs to be out, or if it went too far, or if it's just not the best look for our brand. And it's not that people don't know. People have publicists for a reason, where it's like, you know what, we're probably going to take down that shoe. We're going to disassociate ourselves with that brand. So just you being that for them, it just lets you know how much the control of the narrative is. They pay good money for that. So
very much. And one other thing that is important to know is that broadcast rights and digital rights are very different things. Very different things. Something that is completely okay to air over live television or even over a movie screen could also very much not be allowed to be streamed on digital. They're just completely, it's a whole, that was the biggest revelation for me. I'm like, well, it's like we're taking like a Rambo film from like way back in the 70s, 80s or 90s, I guess. And then we might have to edit something out because we just can't show it in today's digital world. I don't know. We run into situations like that, and it's weird. It's like, it's crazy to me.
For sure. Yeah, that's crazy. I've actually never heard that. But with that being said, Camo, I gotta ask this.
Yes, sir.
But what is the next vision? You're gonna be a frequent guest on ABellAtNight, always a guest on El Boogie and the Bell. I would love to know what's the future. You kind of just let us know what you're doing and where you're at with that. I want to know what is the future in LA, and is that your final place? Like, is LA the place that's made for you, or if you were to bow out, where would you be headed next?
I think as far as work, like as far as my career, LA is where I want to be. It still has everything that I am trying to achieve, and what's next is I am looking to break out full-time into the sports and entertainment division, and I would very much like to be also in original content. So like helping people edit and make original content for our platforms, whatever that may be, whether that's through Tubi or something else. I think that would be really cool. And as far as living, right now is where I want to stay, and it's where I want to stay for a long time. But I would not mind being international. I would love to be living somewhere else, whether that be like Canada or the Caribbean or Europe. Would love to be in any of those three places.
So LA's a hot spot for American entertainment, just like New York's a hot spot for American entertainment. You could say Georgia, Atlanta is a hot spot for American entertainment. Can't think of another one off the top of the head. But with that being said, you said what?
Austin.
For sure. Yeah. Well, yeah. There's a lot of things going on out there. So, what internationally? What is kind of like the Hollywood international? Let's start. Let's just do like Europe. Like, what's the Hollywood of Europe?
Ooh, the Hollywood of Europe. It's probably France.
France.
Like, yeah, France is probably where you're gonna want to go for at least the movie, like the big movie pictures. France is probably where you're gonna want to go. If you're wanting to do fashion, Milan is like Italy. I'm pretty sure is really big for fashion. Commercial, I don't know too much about that. Maybe the UK. I feel like the UK is a little bit weird. It might be a little bit of a hub for everything.
Okay.
Or no, there's sports. The UK is more sports.
For sure. Yeah, like I know they're because they own their the soccer league, right? The Premier League.
Yeah, the Premier League.
For sure, for sure. Well, I think we got a lot of insights from one of the greatest to ever do it, or at least the future greatest to ever do it. Camo, I appreciate you for joining the show. If you wanted to leave the people with anything, you can go ahead right now.
Fuck you, JD Vance.
Absolutely, man. We appreciate Camo for pulling up to the show, man. This has been another edition of ABell at Night. Peace.
Peace.